This is HOA neighbor court. I followed the edits until they led back to her. If you refuse, I escalate. Karen stood by the mailbox cluster shouting that my name was back on the violation list and she was proud of it. I was holding my phone recording every word while she waved a laminated policy sheet like it was a warrant. Joan Parker, Design Review Board Vice Chair for Copper Canyon Estates Landing Association, had just announced to the entire neighborhood that I was about to lose my car. I work as a landscape irrigation tech in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which means I get blamed for everything from soggy lawns to broken sprinkler heads. I share the car with my sister, and a tow would strand both of us for days. Joan knew that. She had known it 2 years ago when the same violation list showed up on someone else. And she knew it now. The towing company left a warning tag on my windshield that morning. No signature, no case number. Just a printed threat with a deadline of 48 hours. The timing was too perfect. Joan had been waiting for me at the mailbox cluster with a megaphone, the same megaphone she uses to announce rules every week, and she was reading my name off a clipboard like it was a public execution. "Your camera does not matter, my minutes are the truth," she said, tapping the clipboard with one finger. I kept the phone steady. I had learned that much from the first cold case. 2 years ago, a resident named Marcus got hit with the same tow warning. Same company, same 48-hour window, same clipboard routine at the mailbox. Marcus paid the fine and moved out 3 months later. Nobody ever saw the actual violation notice. Nobody ever saw the minutes proving the board voted to authorize the tow. Joan had been vice chair then, too. I pulled up the portal on my phone and showed her the screen. There is no active violation under my account. The compliance hotline shows 0 open cases. She leaned in, squinting at the screen, then smirked. The portal updates every 72 hours. You are already in the system. This conversation is not a debate, it is a directive. I took a screenshot of her saying that. The timestamp showed 11:14 a.m., May 6th. The portal showed my account was clear as of that morning. I asked her for the case number. She tapped the megaphone against her palm. Case numbers are issued after the hearing. You skipped the hearing. I never got a hearing notice. That is not my problem. You refused certified mail. I checked my mail every single day. No certified envelope. No hearing notice. Nothing. I told her that, and she shrugged. Then you waived your right to appeal. The tow is scheduled for Thursday morning. That was 2 days away. I asked her who authorized the tow. She tapped the clipboard again and said the board voted unanimously. I asked for the meeting minutes. She said they would be posted within 14 business days. 14 days after the tow. I could see the trap forming. Marcus had asked for the same thing, and by the time the minutes were posted, his car was gone and the fine had doubled. I asked Joan if she remembered Marcus. Her expression did not change. I remember every resident who refuses to follow the rules. I asked her if she remembered that Marcus never got his minutes either. She turned and walked back toward the clubhouse. Over her shoulder, she said, "If you want to file a complaint, the form is on the website. Deadline is 5 business days from the violation date." I checked the portal again. There was no violation date listed. No case file. No form link. I called the management company hotline and got a voicemail saying they were experiencing high call volume. I left a message asking for the violation details and hung up. My phone storage was almost full. I had been recording every interaction with Joan for 3 months, ever since she started blocking my sprinkler repair approvals for properties inside the HOA. Every video, every email, every voicemail was eating up space, and I needed to back everything up before it got lost. I spent the rest of the afternoon uploading files to cloud storage and organizing folders by date. That night, I went through the HOA website and found the meeting minutes archive. The most recent posting was from March. It was now early May. I searched for Marcus's name in the old files and found one reference in a September meeting 2 years ago. The line read, "Compliance case docket continues under review. No action at this time. No details. No vote. No tow authorization. I cross-referenced the date with the tow warning Marcus had posted on the neighborhood Facebook group. The warning was dated September 14th. The meeting minutes were dated September 18th, 4 days later. The minutes claimed no action was taken, but Marcus's car had already been towed by then. Someone had backdated the minutes to cover the gap. I screenshotted the page and started a new folder. I labeled it Cold Case Reopen and dropped in every file I had from Marcus's situation. A neighbor named Claire, who worked as a notary and had helped me organize documents before, had saved some of Marcus's posts before he deleted his account. She sent me the screenshots that night. One of them showed Marcus holding up a blank certified mail envelope with no return address. Another showed the tow truck driver telling him the authorization came directly from the HOA board. Claire messaged me, "You seeing the same pattern?" I replied, "Exactly the same. 48 hours, no hearing, no minutes, mystery authorization." She sent me a photo of a stack of paperwork. I kept copies of everything from that time. There was something off about the notices. They all used the same template. I asked her to send me the files. She dropped them in a shared folder within 10 minutes. I opened the first one and saw a compliance notice with Joan's signature at the bottom. The formatting was identical to the tow warning on my windshield. Same font, same spacing, same generic violation language. I opened another file from a different case 6 months earlier. Same template. Joan was mass-producing fake violations. I printed everything and started building a binder. I used a highlighter to mark every repeated phrase, every identical formatting choice, every missing signature. The binder grew to over 60 pages in 2 hours. I labeled the tabs with dates and case names. Marcus. Another resident named Simone. A third case from last year involving a parking dispute. Every single one had Joan's signature and the same template structure. The next morning, I got an email from the HOA compliance hotline. The subject line read, "Final notice, violation enforcement action required." I opened it and found a fabricated notice with altered dates and recycled photos. The photos were pulled from a sprinkler inspection I had done in March. The email claimed the violation occurred in April, but the metadata on the images showed they were taken 2 months earlier. I forwarded the email to Claire and asked her to notarize a statement confirming the metadata mismatch. She replied within the hour, "I can do that, but you need to get this in front of the board before the tow happens." The next board meeting was not scheduled until the following week. I did not have that much time. I called the management company again and got the same voicemail. I sent an email to the board president and copied the entire board list. The email bounced back from 2 addresses. One of them was Joan's. If this story is hitting home, smash that like button and subscribe so you do not miss what happens next. I drove to the management company office that afternoon. The lobby was empty except for a receptionist behind a plexiglass window. I asked to speak with someone about an urgent compliance issue. She told me the compliance officer was out until Friday. I asked if I could leave a document packet. She slid a tray under the window, and I dropped the binder inside. She glanced at the tabs and raised an eyebrow. "This is about Copper Canyon?" I nodded. She flipped through the first few pages and stopped on the template comparison. Her expression shifted. "You are going to want to talk to the board directly. They meet tonight at the clubhouse." I asked her if the meeting was public. She said it was listed as a closed session. I asked her if I could attend as a resident. She hesitated, then said, "Technically, yes. But Joan Parker runs the door. She decides who gets in." I thanked her and left. I spent the rest of the afternoon making copies of the binder. I printed 3 full sets, one for the board, one for Claire, and one for myself. I also burned the email and metadata files onto a USB drive and taped it to the inside cover of my copy. That evening, I arrived at the clubhouse 15 minutes early. Joan was standing at the front steps with her clipboard and megaphone. She saw me coming and stepped directly into my path. This is a closed session. Residents are not permitted. I pulled up the HOA bylaws on my phone and showed her the section on meeting access. Any resident may attend board meetings unless the session involves personnel or legal matters. She did not look at the screen. This session involves legal matters. I asked her what legal matters. She said it was confidential. I asked her if the compliance docket was part of the legal discussion. She said it was not on the agenda. Then it is not a legal session. I am attending. She stepped closer, close enough that I could see the body camera clipped to her jacket. She tapped the clipboard against my chest. If you enter that room, I will have you removed for disruptive conduct. I did not move. I held the binder at my side and waited. A couple sitting on a nearby porch stopped talking and watched. Joan glanced at them, then back at me. She lowered the clipboard and stepped aside. You have 5 minutes to state your case. After that, you leave. I walked past her and into the clubhouse. The board was already seated at a long table. 5 members, including Joan, who followed me in and took her seat at the far end. The board president, a man named Ron, looked up from a stack of papers and frowned. We were not expecting public comment tonight. I approached the table and set the binder down in front of him. I am here about a compliance case that does not exist in the portal, but somehow authorized a tow scheduled for tomorrow morning. Ron opened the binder and scanned the first page. Joan leaned forward and said, "This is a waste of time. The case is closed." I pointed to the template comparison page. This shows that the same notice template was used in at least 4 separate cases over 2 years. Same formatting. Same language. Same signature. Ron flipped through the pages. Joan stood up. Those are confidential case files. He has no right to those documents. I pulled out the USB drive and held it up. I also have metadata, proving that the photos in my violation notice were taken 2 months before the alleged violation date. One of the board members, a woman named Diane, leaned in to look at the binder. She pointed to the Marcus case summary. I remember this. He moved out before we could resolve it. Joan cut in. He moved out because he refused to comply. Diane shook her head. No. He moved out because we never gave him the meeting minutes. I asked you about that at the time, Joan. Joan sat back down. The minutes were delayed due to clerical issues. I opened the binder to the minutes page and pointed to the date mismatch. The minutes are dated 4 days after his car was towed. The meeting minutes claim no action was taken, but the tow company has a signed authorization on file. Ron looked at Joan. Do you have a copy of that authorization? She shook her head. The tow company handled that directly. I asked her if the board voted to authorize the tow. She said yes. I asked her when. She said it was an executive session. Diane frowned. We did not have an executive session that month. Joan opened her own folder and pulled out a handwritten note. The vote was recorded in supplemental minutes. I asked to see the supplemental minutes. She said they were filed separately. I asked where. She said they were stored off-site. Ron closed the binder and looked at me. We are going to table this until we can verify the records. The tow is postponed pending review. Joan stood up. That is not a board decision. The tow is already scheduled. Ron stared at her. I am the board president. I am postponing it. She grabbed her folder and walked out. The body camera light was still blinking. The couple from the porch was standing outside the window, watching the whole thing. I left the clubhouse 20 minutes later with a signed receipt confirming the board had accepted my evidence packet. Ron pulled me aside before I left and said, "We have had complaints about Joan before, but nobody ever brought documentation like this." I asked him what kind of complaints. He said residents had reported missing minutes, delayed responses, and selective enforcement. He said the board had discussed removing her from the compliance committee, but they needed cause. I handed him a second copy of the binder. This should be enough cause. He nodded. We will schedule a hearing. You will get a notice. I asked him when. He said within 2 weeks. I told him my phone storage was almost full and I needed to back up more recordings before I lost them. He gave me his personal email and told me to send him anything I found. That night, Claire called me. She said another resident had reached out to her with a similar story. A woman named Angela had received a parking violation notice 3 months ago. The notice claimed she parked in a fire lane, but Angela had doorbell camera footage proving her car was in her driveway the entire day. She submitted the footage to the compliance hotline and never heard back. 2 weeks later, she got a second notice with a doubled fine. Claire sent me Angela's contact info. I called her the next morning. Angela was furious. She told me Joan had personally delivered the second notice and told her the footage was irrelevant because the notice was based on a neighbor complaint. I asked Angela if she still had the footage. She said yes. I asked her if she would be willing to submit it to the board. She said absolutely. I added Angela's case to the binder and updated the index. The pattern was now clear. Joan was running a compliance hotline that she controlled personally. She wrote the notices, fabricated the violations, and buried the appeals. The board had no idea because she filed everything as supplemental minutes stored off-site. I sent Ron an email with Angela's footage attached and a summary of the new case. He replied within an hour. This is worse than I thought. We are calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow night. The next evening, I arrived at the clubhouse with 3 binders and a printed evidence packet. Claire met me outside with a notarized statement confirming the metadata mismatches. Angela was there too, holding her own folder of doorbell footage and violation notices. Joan arrived 10 minutes late. She saw the 3 of us standing together and stopped in her tracks. She pulled out her megaphone and raised it. This is an ambush. Ron opened the door and waved us in. This is an emergency session. All 3 of you are invited to present. Joan followed us inside, muttering under her breath. She sat at the far end of the table and crossed her arms. The body camera was off. Ron started the meeting by reading the agenda. We are here to address multiple complaints regarding compliance enforcement and procedural irregularities. The floor is open. I stood up and walked to the board table. I slid copies of the evidence packet to Ron and the other 4 board members. I waited for the right audience, because the reveal needed witnesses. I opened my copy and pointed to the first page. This packet contains evidence of a pattern of fraudulent compliance notices spanning 2 years. Every case involves the same template, the same missing minutes, and the same enforcement tactics. Joan leaned forward. Those are confidential case files. This is a violation of privacy. I pulled out a printed screenshot of the HOA portal. This is the portal audit log, showing that Joan accessed the compliance database 47 times in March alone. Every access was followed by a notice being issued within 24 hours. Diane flipped through her copy of the packet. These are all cases Joan handled personally. Ron looked at Joan. Is that accurate? She shrugged. I am the vice chair of the design review board. Compliance is part of my role. I turned to the next page. This page shows that the same violation template was used in 4 separate cases. The only variable is the resident name and the date. Everything else is identical. Angela stood up. I have doorbell footage proving my car was never in the fire lane. Joan told me the footage did not matter because a neighbor complained. I asked her who complained. She said it was anonymous. Joan tapped the table. Anonymous complaints are protected under the bylaws. Ron shook his head. No. The bylaws require that all complaints be verified before a notice is issued. If the footage proves the car was not in the fire lane, the notice is invalid. Joan stood up and grabbed her folder. This is a kangaroo court. I am leaving. Ron raised his voice. Sit down, Joan. We are not finished. She sat back down. Her face was red. The body camera light turned on again. I pulled out the final piece of evidence. This is a state complaint confirmation showing prior enforcement complaints against the HOA. The state received 3 separate complaints about selective enforcement and missing minutes. All 3 complaints named Joan Parker as the responsible party. Ron stared at the page. When was this filed? I pointed to the date. Last month. The state is still investigating. Joan grabbed the megaphone off the table and raised it. You filed a state complaint without notifying the board? I looked at her. You filed fake violations without notifying the board. Diane stood up. I move that we vote to remove Joan Parker from the design review board and strip her of all compliance authority. Another board member, a man named Steve, seconded the motion. Ron called for a vote. 4 hands went up. Joan stared at them, then grabbed her folder and walked out. She slammed the door behind her. The couple from the porch was standing outside again, watching her leave. Ron turned to me. We are going to need copies of everything you have. The board is opening a full audit of the compliance system. I handed him the USB drive. This has every email, every recording, and every metadata file. It is all time-stamped and indexed. He pocketed the drive and looked at Angela and Claire. Thank you for coming forward. This would not have happened without your help. Claire smiled. We have been waiting 2 years for someone to do something. The meeting ended 20 minutes later. Ron walked me outside and shook my hand. We are going to publish new standards and timelines to all homeowners. No more secret enforcement. No more missing minutes. I asked him what would happen to Joan. He said the board was referring the case to the state for review. If the investigation confirmed fraud, she could face civil penalties and removal from the HOA entirely. I went home that night and uploaded the final batch of recordings to cloud storage. My phone storage was finally clear. I backed up everything to 3 separate drives and labeled them "Cold Case Closed." 2 weeks later, the HOA sent out a mass email announcing new compliance procedures. Every violation notice now required a case number, a hearing date, and a copy of the meeting minutes authorizing enforcement. The compliance hotline was transferred to the management company. Joan's name was removed from the board roster. Angela called me the day the email went out. She was laughing. Joan tried to file a counter-complaint claiming we defamed her. The management company rejected it because she did not follow the new procedures. I asked Angela what Joan did next. She said Joan showed up at the mailbox cluster with her megaphone and started shouting about unfair treatment. A neighbor recorded the whole thing and posted it to the Facebook group. The video showed Joan waving a laminated policy sheet and yelling about how the new procedures were illegal. The neighbor asked her to cite the bylaw. Joan could not. She packed up the megaphone and left. Her own clip proved the opposite of her claim. Claire sent me a message a few days later. The state investigator contacted me. They want to interview everyone who filed complaints. You are at the top of the list. I replied. Good. I have receipts for everything. The investigator called me the following week. She asked me to walk through the timeline and explain how I connected the cases. I sent her the binder, the USB drive, and a written summary of every step. She told me the state was reviewing the HOA's entire compliance history going back 5 years. A month later, the state issued a formal finding. The HOA was required to publish standards and timelines to all homeowners and implement an independent audit process. Joan was banned from holding any HOA office or committee position for 3 years. The finding also included a provision requiring the board to refund any fines paid under the fraudulent notice system. Marcus got a check in the mail 2 weeks later. So did Angela. So did Simone and 4 other residents who had been targeted by Joan's scheme. I framed the state finding and hung it in my garage next to my work schedule. Every time I see it, I think about the cold case that sat unsolved for 2 years because nobody wanted to dig into the details. Joan tried one more move. She filed a lawsuit against the HOA claiming wrongful termination and reputational harm. The board hired an attorney who reviewed the evidence packet and filed a motion to dismiss. The judge granted the motion within 30 days. Joan's attorney dropped her as a client the same week. The neighborhood Facebook group exploded. Residents started sharing their own stories about Joan's enforcement tactics. One post included a photo of the megaphone she used at the mailbox cluster. Someone photoshopped a red circle and slashed over it. The post got over 200 likes. Ron sent me a personal email thanking me for pushing the investigation forward. He said the board was implementing quarterly audits and requiring all committee members to complete compliance training. He also said the HOA was looking into whether Joan's actions qualified as wire fraud because she used the compliance hotline email system to send fake notices. I forwarded the email to Claire and Angela. Claire replied, "You just took down an entire corrupt system with a binder and a highlighter." Angela replied, "And now every HOA Karen in the state knows that paper trails do not lie." I went back to work the next week. My irrigation schedule was packed, but I kept one evening free each month to help other residents organize their own compliance files. Claire started a neighborhood document workshop where residents could learn how to request records, file appeals, and spot fake notices. Attendance doubled every session. Joan moved out of Copper Canyon 6 months later. She listed her house as for sale by owner and avoided the HOA common areas completely. The last time I saw her, she was loading boxes into a rental truck. She saw me watching from my driveway and turned away without saying a word. The tow warning on my windshield is still in my evidence file. I kept it as a reminder that every fraud leaves a trail, and every trail leads somewhere if you are willing to follow it. The couple from the porch stopped by my place a few weeks after the final board vote and thanked me for standing up. They said they had been watching Joan harass residents for over a year and nobody had ever fought back. I told them the same thing I told Ron. I did not do it alone. Claire and Angela and every other resident who saved their paperwork made it possible. The binder is still on my desk. I add to it whenever I find a new case or a new pattern. The state investigator told me the findings could lead to criminal charges if the fraud crossed certain thresholds. I sent her every file I had and told her to let me know if she needed more. The HOA is different now. The compliance process is transparent. The meeting minutes are posted within 48 hours. The board votes on every enforcement action in public session. Joan's replacement on the design review board is a retired teacher who actually reads the applications before approving them. I still check the portal every week. My account shows 0 violations. The case file that Joan created is marked as invalid, closed by board action. The tow authorization was canceled and expunged from the record. The towing company was banned from operating inside the HOA after the state found they had accepted unauthorized requests from Joan without verifying board approval. The mailbox cluster is quieter now. No megaphone, no shouting. Just neighbors picking up mail and talking about normal things like lawn care and weekend plans. I appreciate you being here.